Let's talk about the seditious conspiracy.
Yes.
This is the big play the Democrats needed. They needed to be able to say that there were sedition charges for their narrative. You've got the Daily Show now coming out saying the no sedition, talking point is now officially dead. Rest in peace in memoriam. We have this story from CNN. Oath Keepers leader appears in court on seditious conspiracy charges, but it wasn't just him. It was 10 others.
Right.
So you want to break down for us what this is about?
Yes, I'd like to say some things about this. First of all, the seditious conspiracy charge is a rare one, and it's one that's even more rarely used successfully. If you look at the history of it, there's only a handful of cases. The first couple of cases are weird, like cases involving Puerto Rico for whatever reason. Then you have one successful case against an Islamic terrorist, and you have a couple others that were not successful. So this is a very rare charge. It's an extremely serious charge. Everyone else, I believe, on the who is charged with seditious conspiracy, they already had lesser charges. The only person who has just added completely was the founder and leader of the Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes. And I think there's probably a lot of public interest in a reaction to this, particularly because my news outlet, Revolver.news, has run several detailed investigative reports on Rhodes, calling into question the seeming protection that he enjoyed from the federal government for not being arrested and so forth. And so I think a lot of people are confused, and some people are probably erroneously concluding, oh, he was hit with this charge, therefore he couldn't have been a Fed. And I think that there are a number of things to say for that. First of all, I don't think any of the questions raised in the Revolver's reporting are dispelled by this. I think they're only intensified. And here's some interesting things about his case. So seditious conspiracy is a very serious charge. So we're supposed to believe that the government's been building this serious charge for an entire year, and yet they didn't bother to search him for an entire year. Well, asterisk to that. They searched a single cell phone on his person 4 months after January 6th. So here's the founder and leader of the most prosecuted boogeyman militia group who was all over the media, and he's so dangerous that they wait 4 months, give him 4 months to destroy all evidence and take a single cell phone from his person, and then wait an additional 8 months of zero search before they hit him with this serious charge. If they're taking him seriously enough to hit him with seditious conspiracy, how do you explain the fact that they only took a single cell phone 4 months after? And contrast that with an individual called Thomas Caldwell, who is one of his co-defendants now. Caldwell was arrested very early on in mid-January. Caldwell got the full Fed raid treatment where they went in with guns, they raided his place, they took every electronic in sight. Then they charged him immediately with a conspiracy charge to obstruct an official proceeding. And if you look at the conspiracy charging documents, the whole conspiracy of the government's case is based on Stewart Rhodes' statements and actions. And so that raises another question about Rhodes' seditious conspiracy indictment. Why did the feds wait an entire year for this big indictment when they could have taken him off the streets with a lesser indictment, either for the same conspiracy charge that they hit Thomas Caldwell for and others, or a trespassing charge, which we know he trespassed. There's footage of him on the Capitol grounds, and they've charged others with trespassing, even who didn't go into the Capitol. So putting these things together, you have to wonder, okay, they were taking him so seriously that they were building up this mega seditious conspiracy case through the course of a whole year. And yet in that year, they only search a single cell phone 4 months after January 6th, and they neglect the option to hit him with a lesser charge and just do a superseding indictment for the seditious case. So those are really important questions that linger, and I think the seditious conspiracy charge is actually a way for the government to get away with the perfect crime, and I'd love to explain that, but I'll stop here.
Do you think that Rhodes is a Fed or in some way involved with Feds?
I think that is the most powerful explanation for the questions that I just raised.
When you guys say Fed, you mean a federal agent, not necessarily Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Fed is okay. A vague term. I think that the most likely explanation for the questions that I raised was that he had some relationship with some government agency.
Is it possible that the reason they didn't go after him early on, the reason they didn't try and dredge up any other information, was because they knew there was none, and the only reason they're bringing charges now is that it's an election year and it justifies establishment political talking points?
I think that would be a plausible explanation if none of the other people were charged. But if they knew there was no information, then how did they get this guy Thomas Caldwell on conspiracy, where the whole conspiracy in the charging documents is full of Stewart Rhodes' statements and actions? So if they thought that amounted to nothing, how do you explain that they hit this minor figure who's just a fellow traveler, not even an Oath Keeper, and this guy who's built up as the big boogeyman head of the Oath Keepers, they leave him untouched and unsearched?
I see all of the Daily Show did that thing where it was like, rest in peace, there was no sedition charges talking point.
Yep.
I just respond with, has anybody been convicted of insurrection or sedition even?
Well,
You're innocent until proven guilty. I don't
be,
care if the government says you are.
There's going to be no conviction. And
look, look, when a lot of people came out and said, was anybody charged with sedition or insurrection? We've brought that talking point up as well. And it's relevant up until the government decides to do it.
Right.
So I'll say this right now. Maybe someone will be convicted. But the talking point isn't that it'll never happen, is for right now, with the January 6th committee coming out and saying all of these things,
right,
just because you charge someone, I don't care. When these people are convicted, we can have a conversation about,
right,
that we found in a court of law, they attempted to do these things. And that being said, the federal government, when they charge people, they have a very, very high conviction rate. So
right.
Is this going to...
Except for seditious conspiracy, ironically.
True.
So just two more really important points about Rhodes in particular in this charge. One is the timing. Okay, part of the timing was the whole, Fedsurrection narrative was at its absolute apex. I think more important than that, though, is just like a week before Rhodes was charged, an attorney for another Oath Keeper subpoenaed Rhodes and was getting him to testify in the Oath Keeper's case. And one consequence of actually charging Rhodes is it clears him off the table so that he has a perfect excuse not to testify because he just pleads the Fifth. And this is part of the playbook. In fact, it happened in the Michigan case. One of the big informants in that case was named Steve Robeson. Once he was outed, the government immediately slapped him with an unrelated gun charge that clears him off the table. So that's one aspect that I think is really important in relation to the timing. Another thing is this, is if I were the feds and I wanted to cover up the perfect crime, I would do precisely what they just did with the seditious conspiracy charge for the following reasons. Think of what the charge achieves. One, it gives a big headline that for lower information people or people who don't really understand the argument, they say, oh, he's hit with this charge, he must not be a Fed. So it, quote unquote, debunks the right-wing people who say, oh, Fedsurrection. On the other hand, it assuages and satisfies all of these left-wing people who have been furious that he hasn't been charged for a year because in their minds, the government is protecting him because the government's a bunch of Trump-loving Nazis. So it assuages them. But thirdly, there's a problem. If they hit Rhodes with a serious charge and Rhodes is a Fed, then Rhodes has leverage over them and can say, I'm going to go rogue if you guys betray me. But I think they have the perfect cover story for that too, because they could go to Rhodes and say, look, we're going to hit you with a seditious conspiracy charge. It's going to sound serious, but the public story is you are going to cooperate and tell us what you know about Alex Jones. Tell us what you know about Roger Stone. Just smear a bunch of dirt on Trump's inner circle, which is what the media wants more than anything. And so the public story will look like, oh, Rhodes is cooperating because he's giving up Trump's inner circle, and so they won't follow through with the charges. And so they don't force Rhodes to go rogue. They shut up the Fedsurrection, quote-unquote, conspiracy theorists on the right. They shut up the people on the left who are furious he wasn't charged. And they put more dirt on Trump's inner circle all in one move. So I think, I'm not saying that's necessarily what it is, but if I were consulting with the feds and saying what's the most elegant solution to this problem that you're in right now, this looks pretty close
It would
to
also
that.
shatter the Oath Keepers, I would imagine, by ripping the head off the snake.
Well, let me just point out
at least
one
temporarily.
I need to point out one very obvious and definitive fact. The federal officers here are conspiracy theorists.
Oh,
they've not proven any conspiracy. They've actually just theorized a conspiracy took place and have yet to prove it to anybody. So for the time being, a bunch of conspiracy theorists are seeding information to CNN who reports it as fact. Mind you, the reporter, I won't say her name, is one of the lead reporters in Russiagate. I'm sorry, I got that one wrong. That was wrong. Not that reporter. That was the Russia thing. But I'll just leave it at that, and I got that one mixed up.
Yes, and it just in light of this conspiracy theory, you're absolutely right, and you're right in the literal sense. Benny Thompson, who is the chair of the January 6th committee, in his personal capacity, sued Trump, Roger Stone, Oath Keepers, and Proud Boys, and laid out his literal conspiracy theory, which is that Trump's inner circle colluded with the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers in order to do January 6th. That's actually the conspiracy theory, which is weird because given the prominent role that Stuart Rhodes played in the January 6th chairman's theory, he waited until November to subpoena Rhodes. I find that also a little bit weird, and he only did that after Revolver News put on the pressure by saying, what the hell's going on with the committee? They're neglecting Rhodes, and they're going after seemingly anyone who was within a mile radius of the Capitol on January 6th and taking their phones and communications and so forth.
So where does it go?
Well,
they're not going to convict him.
I think that's extremely unlikely, but I think a very interesting dynamic is in play. I think these are it's an elegant attempt, but it's also a risky attempt because the more that they do this, just like their cover up with Epps saying, oh, Epps isn't a Fed because Epps talked to the committee and told us he wasn't a Fed, without releasing Epps's exact statements and without even telling us that Epps's statement was under oath. And it's a weirdly precise statement of Epps not being a law enforcement official. Well, DOD is not law enforcement. There are a lot of other agencies that aren't law enforcement that he may have been affiliated.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.